afternoon, everyone. The session was at 12. We've been asked to hold on for some time as some more people are joining in. So, just give us another 5 minutes or so, and we'll be starting the session. In the meantime, we'll put on the screen there is a QR code. This QR code can take you to the soft copies of the SOP. So you can directly access the SOP on your mobile through scanning the QR code. The SOPs are available both in English language as well as Hindi language. And there is a contemplation to have the SOP in further languages also as it gains more and more momentum. So please allow us another 5-7 minutes to start this session. But in the meantime, if you all want to download the SOP, because once we go through the session, in the session we'll touch upon how the SOP can be navigated. And if you have the SOP on your mobile, it'll be easier for you all to understand that how easy it is to navigate. At the same time, how detailed it is to give you all the information about the compliances under various legislations at your fingertips through your mobile phone by downloading this SOP. Yeah. So please allow us 5 minutes to start the session. In the meantime, you all may proceed to download the SOP. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. So here is our next session, Standard Operating Procedure SOP of the jewelry industry regards to compliance with FTP tax laws, etc. All right, then, right here we have our speaker all set to take over. We're talking to a person who is a partner and co-heads the tax regulatory and custom practice in economic law practice ELP, one of India's premier full-service law firm. He has assisted several Indian and multinational firms across sectors on various regulatory and tax issues in relation to BIS, consumer protection, and direct and indirect taxes applicable in India. He has been associated with supporting the gem and jewelry industry for more than 2 decades. He has successfully led various tax and trade related initiatives before the relevant ministries of the Government of India. Along with ELP, they are engaged leading members of the gem and jewelry industry in relation to tax and other matters. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the LLB from Mumbai University and a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, none other than Mr. Nishant Shah. Without further ado, to the person who knows best what to say. There you go, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, GJPC, for this opportunity. As we start this session, sometime before this session, I just mentioned that we have a QR code. I think somewhere outside also they put up the QR code. If you scan the QR code, you can download the standard operating procedure that has been created by GJPC along with ELP, which facilitates every of India's highly employing industry. The jewelry industry today is spread across the length and breadth of the country. In fact, when we were contemplating about this SOP, the first question which came up in our minds was that in some of the rural areas of India today, you may not have a bank, but you'll surely have a jeweler there. Because that agriculturist, that farmer there, because he wants to make savings for his daughter's wedding, he will invest his money in a piece of jewelry. He may not have a bank account, he may not deposit into a savings bank, but he will still go and buy jewelry, somewhere keep it in a ghada, dig it into the ground and save it there, because at the time of the wedding, if he needs to use it, he'll pull out that jewelry. So it's a means of savings, and therefore you have jeweler in every nook and corner of the country, or every remotest of the remote place also, even where you may not have a bank branch. Because of that, what is happening is that the Indian jewelry industry is spread across the country. Now, another unique feature of this industry is that every location or every part of the country has its own unique features so far as the jewelry is concerned, and therefore we see a unique diversity in this industry. And when I talk about diversity, and that's where I've brought about the second this thing, you see a distinct diversity in the traditional motifs of every piece of jewelry. You see a piece of jewelry in Calcutta will be very distinct from a piece of jewelry in the southern India, will be quite distinct from certain pieces of jewelry that will be produced in Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc. So that itself also has its own uniqueness. With this uniqueness comes the other aspects of the manner in which the trade is carried out. So a jeweler in Calcutta gives his jewelry to be produced on job work basis on a different term as compared to that in South India, as compared to that in Rajasthan. And all of this is creating not just a diversity in the nature of the piece of jewelry, but also a diversity in the transaction structure. Somebody who goes to buy a jewelry in Calcutta may be more used to giving some old jewelry and buying a fresh jewelry, or in Mumbai also you may be giving some sort of an old jewelry and buying fresh jewelry, where the gold is equated and a new piece of jewelry is given, in which case they only charge you for the making charges. You may also be carrying a few stones, say in Rajasthan, I may carry a piece of old jewelry with some stones and tell them, okay, this is a new design I want, please melt my old jewelry. These are some stones, put it, and this is the new design which I want a new piece of jewelry. Each of these results into a diversity in the nature of transaction also which is carried out. Now, if there is so much of diversity in the manner in which the transaction is carried out, if there is so much diversity in the manner in which the payment system is, somewhere you pay for the whole jewelry, somewhere you are paying only for the making charges, somewhere you are paying for the stones plus the making charges because the gold is your own, would the underlying tax or regulatory implication be the same, or would it vary? Answer is, ideally it should be the same. It cannot be that because you did this, your tax is higher, but because you did this, your tax is lesser. Or because you did the transaction in this manner, you need to maintain records, but in the other situation, you don't need to maintain records. It can't be that way, correct? The law of the land is the same. However, because of this diversity in our trade and the possibility of the authorities not understanding our trade to that nitty-gritty, or all the diversity, there is a possibility that the authority may say, अरे इस तरह का transaction जब हमने यहाँ पे देखा तो आप लोग ने तो ऐसा maintain किया था, लेकिन आप तो अलग maintain कर रहे हो, तो क्या आप गलत कर रहे हो कि वो गलत कर रहे हैं? The answer is कोई भी गलत नहीं कर रहा है. The industry is so diverse that there could be situations where the very same transaction of buying a piece of jewelry is carried out in a different manner in different parts of the country. And therefore we felt that it is important that we accumulate or put together every such situation in which gold is procured. Gold is procured on loan, gold is procured outright, gold is received or just for job work basis. It's a different manner in which gold is procured. Different ways in which jewelry is produced. Somewhere jewelry is produced in-house, somewhere jewelry is produced through a job worker, somewhere the job worker gets his remuneration through piece rate, somewhere the job worker gets his remuneration through the dust which comes out plus certain cash. So there is a lot of variation. Finally, when the jewelry is sold also, there are so many different nuances which come in. Somewhere you send on job on a sale on approval basis, they retain some of the pieces, rest of the pieces are sent back. Somewhere they receive the piece and then they'll ask for some modification. So in all of these situations, we thought it's important that we collate all of these different types of transactions, put it in one compilation, and then come out with certain systems or methods which help every jeweler to understand, more than understand, undertake compliances, and when an authority comes to question you, be it from hallmarking, be it from income tax, be it from customs, be it from GST, you are able to answer and tell them that this is the reason why I have maintained this record. This is the reason why I have paid this tax. This is the reason why I have charged this tax on my invoice. And where will you get all of that from? Now, at your fingertips, you will get the answer from this SOP which you have. Now, so why was this required? Sorry, go back to the previous slide, please. Why was this required, the need for standardization? Like I said, there was a lot of, there is a whole comprehensive conclusions being undertaken by the authorities based on industry participants. With the enhanced digitization, what we realized is that certain jewelers in certain remote parts of the country, they were required to depend a lot on their chartered accountant or somebody else to carry out the compliances. It was increasing the cost of the jewelers. Can this cost be reduced by making them Atmanirbhar or making them to carry out the compliances on their own? And that is where we felt there was a need for a sort of a standardization process by which you maintain appropriate records, carry out necessary compliances, etc., carry out on your own and are not required to depend on anybody else. So keeping that in mind, GJEPC, the whole committee got together and said, what can we do? And the thought process which came to, can we create some sort of, like, you have those crash course for dummies, like, very small, a small booklet which shows everything, right from what is the nature of the transaction, what is the relevant law applicable, what is the compliance under there, What is the nature of invoice? अगर invoice में ये चीज़ है तो invoice कैसा दिखना चाहिए, डिलीवरी चलाना है तो कैसा दिखना चाहिए, फॉर्म में फिलअप करना है तो कहाँ से फिलअप करना है, फॉर्म में ये जो फिलअप कर रहे हो उसका कोरिलेशन लॉ के नीचे कहाँ पे दिया हुआ है, so that not just you are doing the compliance properly, even when the authority comes, it does not come across to the authority कि आप नहीं जानते हो, आप तो जानते ही हो क्योंकि ये SOP में सब कुछ दिया हुआ है. We will go through the SOP in detail for you all to understand what it covers and how it covers the various things. But before that, that was the purpose of the SOP. Next slide, please. So this is just speaking about that ELP along with GJEPC got together, put the SOP together. Having put the SOP together, it does not end there. There is a thought process of, we already have the SOP in English and Hindi. It is intended to make in further languages also so that it becomes utilizable or it is useful in different parts of the country. And this SOP will continuously keep getting updated by ELP on a regular basis because as most of us here know, our laws keep changing. Tax laws keep changing with every budget which comes through. So once in a year or maybe if need be twice in a year, ELP will update this SOP and the latest version of SOP at best to the difference of 2 to 3 months old will be available on GJEPC website continuously and regularly. Next slide please. What was the methodology we followed? It wasn't so easy and simple to say or prepare what we are saying because we may believe, each of us in the location that we are operating, and especially in Mumbai, there is a certain practice which most of us here will be aware. But to your surprise, you'll realize that the practice was not the same across the country. When we went to Calcutta, the manner in which they carry out job work is much different. When we went to the south, we realized that the manner in which they undertake the valuation and the basis of calculation, again, there is a variation. So it was becoming difficult to understand that can we call each of these transactions similar or can we say that each of these transactions have the same intent, which is what the whole purpose of the SOP was. And therefore, what all did we do? We identified few jurisdictions and ELP team visited each of those jurisdictions. Within those jurisdictions, we circulated a questionnaire asking them to keep certain information ready and collated that information. We then had discussions with them and based on the responses which were given, we actually questioned them to understand what was the intent. Then we put all of this together and then we asked the underlying documents कि आप चलो कलकत्ता में है तो किस तरह का डॉक्यूमेंट बनाते हैं, कहीं पे जांगड़ बनाते हैं तो कहीं पे डिलीवरी चलान बनाते हैं, कहीं पे डिलीवरी नोट बनाते हैं. They all have different nomenclatures. Is the intent the same? Intent same था तो हमने कहा कि फिर हम क्यों अलग अलग नाम दे रहे हैं, ये तो सेम चीज़ ही है. कंप्लायंस कोई इस तरह से कर रहा है तो कोई इस तरह से कर रहा है पर सेम कंप्लायंस कर रहे हैं. So we collated all of this and put this together. At this point, I would want to request the industry that while this SOP has been prepared based on certain information we got from the industry at that point in time, there is, like I said, the law keeps changing regularly. In India, we have a unique situation. Even if the law doesn't change, the authorities will start interpreting the law in a different manner sometime later. So it may so happen that 3 महीने बाद आपके पास authority आ रहा है, कह रहा है कि वो आप पिछले 5 साल से जो कर रहे हो वो सही नहीं कर रहे हो, क्योंकि इस तरह से इसका interpretation होना चाहिए. Even if any of y'all are faced with that kind of a situation during an audit being carried out or an income tax assessment being carried out or a GST audit or a customs bill of entry assessment, my request is please bring it to the notice of GJEPC. Because if there is such a situation, that needs to be reflected in this SOP. We will take across to say that that interpretation is wrong and therefore what is the correct interpretation under the SOP. Or if that is a different nuance which needs to be captured, then we'll ensure that that is also captured. तो अगर आपके पास कोई शोकोज नोटिस आती है या तो कोई क्वेरी आती है या तो ऑडिट में कोई ऑब्जेक्शन रेज किया जा रहा है, please bring it to the notice of GJEPC so that this SOP can be tailored to take care of that as well. As we move to the next slide, this is the whole process of putting up the SOP together. ELP collated the different practice areas, identified those aspects. We reviewed the whole different documentation, identified what was the essence of that documentation and tried to find कि अगर हम इतनी fields का ये document बना देते हैं तो ये सबकी purpose serve करती है. Then whether it is a jeweler in Calcutta, whether it's a jeweler in Chandigarh, whether it's a jeweler in Rajasthan or south of India, every part of the country is being covered, or be it in Madhya Pradesh. Recognizing these complex structures, everything, we then started devising formats because हमने कहा कि जो आज का लॉ है, द लॉ हैज़ चेंज्ड. टुडेज लॉज ओनली रिक्वायर दैट ओके अगर आपका इनवॉइस है तो इसमें ये 25 चीज़ें होनी चाहिए, या तो आपका डिलीवरी चालान है तो ये 22 चीज़ें होनी चाहिए. हमने कहा खाली इतना लिस्टिंग करके छोड़ देंगे तो उसमें भी वापस वेरिएशन शुरू हो जाएगा, तो हमने सबके फॉर्मेट्स ही बना दिए. फॉर्मेट्स बना के ये एसओपी में अवेलेबल है. तो अगर आपको फॉर्मेट में भी कंफ्यूजन है, डोंट वरी, जस्ट पिक अप द फॉर्मेट फ्रॉम द एसओपी एंड यू कैन यूज दैट. Just change there wherever it says, put in your name as the letterhead, put in your GST number or your PAN number, and it's up and running for your organization. Next slide, please. Now we come to the essence of the SOP. You know, this was just the background to understand why this SOP is important and how it was created. Now we come to the essence of the SOP. What all does the SOP cover? The SOP covers customs law. When we were talking about customs law, we said सब कुछ customs में हमें को applicable नहीं है. कौन से critical areas है which becomes applicable to us and therefore it should be harped upon. And therefore under customs we've attempted to cover procedures, because that becomes very important. We realize that different procedures are being followed by different entities. Then rate of duty, again, if the rate is varying or some aspect, because for colored gemstones, for LGD, for natural stones, again there are variation in rates. Within the rates, again, if you are under a SEPA or an FT or something, again there is a variation. So that was becoming important. Document duty drawback is one of the important incentives which is claimed, and e-commerce related issues. From a foreign trade policy, again, advance authorization was very significant, remission of duties and taxes, and export, because we have a significant export within the industry, and sometimes export documentation becomes very critical. More effectively, the refunds that we are claiming or the benefits that we are claiming has to be litigation free, and therefore it becomes critical. GST was a pain point because a lot of compliances were coming under GST. More importantly, the digitization under GST. तो अगर digitization रखने के साथ साथ आपको, if you want to do it at your own will and at your own through your own efforts, this is how the SOP would help us. So various aspects under GST were captured. From GST came income tax, because we realized that a lot of controversies were coming under income tax, mainly from a TDS and other aspects. And finally, hallmarking, because hallmarking was brought in and there were certain controversies coming in from a hallmarking perspective. So those issues were also becoming more and more onerous. So this is the coverage of the SOP. Next, if we go to the next slide, is we've put across as to how the SOP has been depicted. Can you go to the next slide, please? These are the various chapters that we covered in the SOP. First is the methodology that we identified. From the methodology, this is the whole portion which I've already explained. Then we thought that, if this SOP has to be really useful, आज सारे ज्वेलर्स कौन से एस्पेक्ट से जाते हैं. हम प्रोक्योर करते हैं गोल्ड, उसको कन्वर्ट करते हैं ज्वेलरी में और फाइनली सेल करते हैं. तो हमने इसको भी पूरा ऐसे ही बाइफरकेट कर दिया. पहले प्रोक्योरमेंट्स की कौन से डिफरेंट वेज इन विच यू प्रोक्योर, वी बाइफरकेट इनटू दिस. If you go through in detail, you'll realize every possible way in which you procure your inputs, mainly being gold, certain stones, pearls, etc., which you may be, and certain alloys, etc. All of this is captured there. Next, when we go to the next slide, is the manufacturing process, manufacturing at the own premises or job workers' premises. Then when you go into sales, there is domestic sales, normal sales, sale on approval. Like I said, every possible variation of undertaking a sale has been captured. Exports, what are the different ways? When you undertake exports, there are various schemes in which you will take benefit. वो schemes के नीचे क्या documentation maintain करना है, क्योंकि आपको नहीं चाहिए कि हमने export तो कर लिया, benefit भी ले लिया और बाद में कोई question पूछ रहा है. तो अगर कोई पूछ रहा है तो उसके किस तरह से compliances है. Finally, certain generic, what are the different rates, etc. So it becomes like a ready reckoner. If you go to the next slide. Now, let me take you through how do you navigate the SOP, and I'll request my colleague Neeraj to come in and touch upon and explain to us how do you go through the SOP. Because again, the SOP has been fully linked. So you click at one place, it will take you to the relevant transaction. There you click, it will take you to the relevant form, and that's how the whole structure has been built in. Neeraj, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Nishant. So like Nishant mentioned, the entire SOP has been drafted and designed in a manner wherein I don't have to read the entire book. I do not need to know the law, nothing. because it is very simple for anybody to read the law and tell you. This has been exactly divided in sort of, oh, can you go down to the index? Yeah. So this is basically how the SOP will look down, the cover page. The SOP, SOP. So once you go down, so Honorable Commerce Minister was very kind to give us an introduction to the SOP, etc. So once you go down, you will see various chapters given. I have my supply chain landed up in 4 ways. There's procurement, there is manufacture, there is sale. So I do not need to know all the compliance in one bit. I will see today I'm procuring, okay, what sort of is my procurement? It's a direct procurement. I will click there, go down to that. Over here, when you see para 2, point number 2, the various sorts of procurement which are there have been set out over here. Now, generally, there are two or three ways in which procurements happen. It is rather from a bank or nominated agencies, from a old jeweler, or against bullion, against sale of jewellery. So we'll take down direct procurement first. So in the direct procurement piece, we have first covered out valuation. The valuation is generally based on whatever the transaction value is. I do not have to go into it. He tells me that it is 5,000 rupees per gram. I pay him 5,000 rupees a gram. Thereafter, we come down to the classification at tax rates. Over here, you will see in the bottom right column, the GST rate which is applicable on bullion is given. So I will first verify whether the same GST rate is being charged to me or not. Same goes with the HSN. Thereafter, he will have to issue us a tax invoice and certain other key documents. Over here, you will see that, okay, fine, these are the particular documents I need. Now, first thing I see whether invoice issued to me is correct or not. I click on this link. I directly go down to the things which are required on the invoice. Once you go down, there are formats also given, but these are the main sort of documents or particulars which are required on invoicing. Say, for example, point 4. How do I know whether an e-invoice is required for that or not? Over here, I see 10 crore rupees is the turnover limit for a e-invoice. If his turnover is more than 10 crore, it has to be obvious that I get an e-invoice. Now, this is important for us because we have noticed a lot of times credit. The point of issuing the invoice is on the supplier. I, as a recipient, also have a sort of responsibility to ensure that what document comes to me, what document I take credit on, is proper and viable in law. Let's go down to the job work section. So while this is procurement has been set out, next I go down to sort of manufacturing piece, which is generally I undertake manufacture through karigars. So we go down to that section directly. So another important part about making this SOP was documenting the various business patterns which are used by the industry. Not the same business pattern is used everywhere like Nishant mentioned. So the first part we did in the SOP is at least document that, okay, the industry works in these 3 or 4 sort of different ways. The reason for this being that tomorrow I should not go in front of some authority and the authority does not understand my transaction, does not, or says this is sham transaction. So that is what it is recorded here. Tomorrow if any authority comes to you and tells you that no, this is incorrect, please show him this, that no, it is valid. This has been validated by GJPC, by various authorities, so here it is. Now, generally, in manufacture through karigars, I have sort of 3 main ways. I go it on a fixed making charge, A. I go it on a making charge plus wastage, or C. It is only through wastage, which is mostly prevalent in the eastern part of the countries. So we have set out all those 3 various parts over here. Then when you go down here to GST piece, over here, down, more down. While the invoices, etc., are again set out over there, the rate applicable, the formats, etc., I will just go down to the implications directly to save you the time. So here, I will have every scenario. So like I mentioned, there are 3 scenarios given everywhere, whether it is making charge, wastage, or a combination of both. We have set out the sort of implications or the compliances required in every scenario. For example, first is what is required to send goods to the job worker. A, in that goods are first received by me and then sent to the job worker. There are, again, compliances wherein goods are directly gone to the job worker. There's a third nuance where I supply goods and the job worker procures some of his own goods to make the finished jewelry. Each of these are set out separately with giving separate implications to each and every one. So we'll just go down to, for example, let's just go to alloy, please, Cooper. Yeah. So now, for example, in certain times, a question comes to what happens to the alloy which a job worker uses. Whether I have to procure it, whether he has to charge to me, whether I can give it to him or ask him to procure for somebody. All these parts are given out over here. In case I am sending it, it's a normal job work. I have to make a delivery challan, etc. In case he's procuring it, he adds the value of that to my invoice. It becomes a composite supply, and he charges a single rate applicable to that. So all these portions over here. So while it's a genuine request to everybody, in case any question has been asked to us by any of the authorities, first thing we do is refer to the SOP, understand what is written over here. In case we are following a method which is not covered in the SOP, please let the GGPC know so that can be included. This has to be a dynamic document which keeps on changing with time, with new technologies, etc. Now, I think I'll open the floor. Is there any particular transaction somebody would want to discuss, etc.? So you can find it in the SOP. Nothing then. Well, I think that's it from my end. If there are any questions, etc., please feel free to ask now, or else we can wrap this session up now. Perfect. Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.